Hi, this is Patrick with Emerald City Traders, and I wanted to go through and talk about sector rotation or stock market rotation and how it is that I find stocks that are going to go on to the watch list for the following day. And so after market close yesterday, I posted an alert on Boeing, and I wanted to show you exactly how I found this. And so what I did is I went into I'm looking for stocks that are pretty beat down, and I'm not saying Boeing is necessarily beat down, but if you take a look here from the last little pump that we had, it's been declining for about 3 or 4 days now. We're getting down there about -9% from that most recent high, the most recent pivot high. And so what I was looking at is the market yesterday had a pretty good day. If I go to the S&P 500, you guys can see here the market had a pretty big day. I'm going to go ahead and mark this. So yesterday's candle, like, and I know it doesn't seem like it on the chart, but that's a pretty big day in the S&P 500. So not to mention we were breaking out, or we were coming right up to the breakout. And so today we're forward looking. I was looking for a breakout overnight. We did get that breakout overnight. And so what I want to talk about is how is it that we find stocks that are possibly going to run. And so what I do is looking around the different market sectors yesterday on my watch list. You'll notice I have a bunch of different names up here: XLF, IWM, the transports, the S&P 500. I have both futures, ES and Q, which is the Nasdaq is in Q, and then we have, of course, um, we have the E-mini futures. So we also have TYX. I like to watch the yields. So I have TYX, TNX, FVX. Those are three of the yields that I like to watch. On here you also see SMH, which is the semiconductors, and then we have, of course, UUP, which is the dollar, which I might, if I have time here, we'll talk about the move today. And then lastly, I have QQQ, which is the Nasdaq, or it's what I like to use to trade the Nasdaq. So looking at yesterday, we also had this huge bullish day in the Nasdaq yesterday, and that was kind of leading the markets higher. As you'll see, this huge green candle right here, that was really pushing the market to the level. One thing I noticed, and this is what I like to do, is I like to notice what these percentages are. So yesterday the transports had a pretty bad day yesterday. If you notice here, I'm going to go into the lower time frame so you can really see it, but we had a pretty bearish candle on the transports yesterday. And so if I zoom in here to a 30-minute chart, I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here. On a 30-minute chart, you'll see that this candle right here, it starts the day off selling off, and then as we trade through the rest of the day, it starts getting lower and lower. And so what I do is, as this is taking place, I'm looking over at the Nasdaq and the S&P 500, and I notice those are having bullish days. So this is really something to consider. The Dow Jones Transports is making a bull flag pattern on a 30-minute chart, while the S&P 500 while the S&P 500 and the Qs are putting in a bullish day, right? So that's a divergence, and so that's something that we have to consider. One of two things is going to happen. Either, and I'm going to do this, I'm just going to do draw a line on the screen. There's the, pretend like that's the S&P 500. Here's the Dow Jones. So in a marketplace, when we're talking about sector rotation, one of two things is going to happen. The transports are going to pull up to catch up to the Qs and the S&P 500, or the S&P 500 and the Qs are going to fall. And we really don't know the answer to that. We really don't know. We just have to use our best judgment. And I'm telling you this right now, if you guys practice on keeping these types of markets on your screen, over time you'll start to learn the behavior of each of them and how they're correlated with each other. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up another screen just really quick, briefly. I'm going to go into a photo that I found online, and of course it's not the photo that I was looking for, but it does, involve some of the names that we're trading. This is what sector rotation is. You can see pretend for a minute that the names over here are the ones that I was talking about on the left-hand side of the screen. This is how they move throughout the year. They don't all move straight up at the same time. You know, they diverge from each other. They're not always straight up with each other. So this is something to consider. Now, think of it like this. This right here is on a, you know, yearly time frame or throughout the year, monthly basis. Now consider that same concept but for a daily basis. And it's not always true and it doesn't always work out. Here's another photo I found on here talking about, but this is more cyclical, right? And I'm going to let you guys pause the video and actually, you know, look at this chart and what this could possibly mean for stocks. So going back to the charts, if I go to each one of these names on the screen, XLF, another puzzle piece, right? XLF, this one was making the same thing that the transports were making, and that is a bear flag kind of a pattern. And so what I did yesterday is closing out of some positions, I started going through the stocks that I like. You know, if I like some of the stocks that, and I know Boeing might not be in the actual transports, but it trades with the transports. Another trade that I took was Wells Fargo, and so today I closed this trade out. I'm holding a few contracts still, but this is another one that was kind of beat down. The last several days, you can see this decline, and then so I took a position in it yesterday. And what I like to do is I like to add this reason, whatever reason I come up with for buying at support, wherever support is, right? I like to buy at support, right? Possibly even waiting for this higher high or even this higher low over here compared to this low right here. And so what I did is I noticed these two. I noticed Boeing. I noticed the banks in general, and I also noticed the transports as far as Boeing and you know, I try to take a trade in AAL, and some of the trades work out, some don't. So if I go to a yearly chart or a daily chart, and I look at Boeing for a minute here, I started noticing this pattern. I noticed this huge run up, this bull flag type pattern, another run up, another bull flag type pattern. And I don't know necessarily that that's going to trade out of that, but that's where I'm putting my money. And so when I look at a weekly chart, I pulled up a weekly chart, and some of you have actually seen this post where I counted the weeks starting with the first week on the green candle, and then I counted down, and there happened to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then a continued move. And that's what I did on the second one. Green candle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And so what I'm looking for is I'm looking for within this week or the next week, possibly looking for a continuation out of this pattern. So I don't know when exactly it's going to happen. And to be honest, right? To be honest, it could come down out of the pattern. But the thing is we're at support. So if it does, I could simply place the stop loss and just let it do its thing, right? So those are the two names that I chose. And feel free to go back and write down some of these names, looking at some of the different names. I do like to watch the yields also. So this is a yield TYX, and I'll go intraday and I'll start looking at it, and I'll see what the bonds are doing. So if a yield, what I want to see is I want to see this market rally, and if it does and it's rallying, I would like to see the same kind of rally in the S&P 500. It doesn't always correlate, okay? But I would like to see it. Another one that I look at, and that same goes for FVX and TNX. The same kind of concept goes for those. The TNX, they don't always trade together. Now, something to consider. One last piece of information is this UUP, which is the dollar index. And so, if you're bullish the dollar, um, if I go to the yearly or the daily chart and I'm looking at it, so if you take a look here, these price levels, 3.9, this is And if you go back even further, 217, 210, pre-COVID prices, right? 25.87 was the support. And we've been kind of tracking this. And I did a post on this today because today we had a breakdown. Here's the breakdown, 30-minute chart. Now, I did a post on this because ideally, if we were to break support, this would be a good thing for stocks. And it was a good thing for stocks today. Now, we did find support. We rallied a little bit. The question becomes, is this a back test and it's going to roll over, or is it going to continue higher? If we see lower prices in the UUP, that could be a good thing for stocks. So that's something to consider. So it takes time doing this. It's the way that I like to trade. This is the big secret on how it is that I find bounce plays in different stocks. You guys want to take a trade in AMD? I do the same thing. Go to your yearly chart or the daily chart. Go to the weekly chart. You know, what is the chart telling you? Go through the checklist. Is it at support? Check mark. Okay. Has it been selling off? What's the RSI look like? Even though it's not everything, what does the RSI look like? Give the bulls the check marks. And then do the same thing on the bear side. Is it at resistance? You know, give yourself the check marks for the bearish case. And then go and look at SMH. See how AMD trades with the SMH. Pull up the two charts. And so if I go to another watch list here, and I'm following this, I trade a lot of the same stocks. Every once in a while I'll add some to my list. But if I notice, for instance, Tesla, if I notice it selling off day after day after day, if I notice that, and then one day we get a huge rally in the market and everything is up. Everything is rallying. What are the odds Tesla's going to rally? Now they may have bad news and there may be, I'm not saying simply buy a stock because it's been beat down. What I'm saying is there's potential for the stock to run up, okay, if it matches the qualifications for buying the stock, if it's at support, right? If it has shown signs that it can rally, like higher lows, higher highs, where is it at in comparison to the moving averages? You know, set yourself up for success. And then one last thing I want to touch on, and then we'll wrap this up, is where are we at on the chart? Do I want to be a swing trader who buys up here? Or do I want to let price come back to the trend line? And would I be a buyer here? Yeah, I would. That's also something to consider. That's going to wrap up this video. Get to know your names, get to know the names that you're trading, get to know the sectors, get to know what stocks fall into which sectors, and even if they don't fall into that sector, if they're sympathy plays, check those out too. If you want to trade Tesla and you're trading you know, NKLA or whatever other electronic vehicle companies there are, sometimes depending on the news they can rally together. Sometimes one will rally and one will sell off. But really get to know these names, and I promise you, you'll be better at finding stocks to buy, finding their bottoms. All right, that's going to wrap it up. Thank you guys.